When writing your papers, one of the biggest pitfalls after paraphrasing is common knowledge. Knowing what is common knowledge and what isn't is a very difficult thing. If you use a famous quote in your writing that you found in a book you read for class, or even an outside source, you must cite the source as being the place where you found the quote. An example of a famous quote might be something a president said, or a famous person in history like Ben Franklin, W.E.B. Du Bois, Maya Angelou, or Nelson Mandela. A quote is also something from your text that contains an opinion from the author or a definition he or she created. Do you need to cite facts like George Washington was our first president? Probably not, as most people know that. How about the names and birth dates of his children? This gets a little trickier and leads me to the first point here of who you are writing for. You need to consider who is reading your paper. If this is a history professor, then no, you probably don't need to cite that information about Washington's children. If you are mentioning it in a literature course, you might want to cite it, as your audience doesn't necessarily have that specialized knowledge, and they might actually be interested in looking at your source. That said, when in doubt, cite. The more specific and specialized your information, the greater the probability that you need to cite. It's also important to consider what your audience already knows. This relates to the who you are writing for. If your audience is a history professor, then he or she will probably know most of the details about the players and events in history, like who won what battle and the date, as well as who specific allies were and important moments in a war or a conflict. I typically use the rule of 3. If I can find the information in 3 scholarly sources, I probably don't need to cite it. However, when in doubt, cite. Generally, numbers always need to be cited. Facts and figures about how many people voted in a particular election and the percentage of women to men who voted, that kind of statement will need a citation. Statistics and percentages, things gleaned from a study or someone or some organization did, always need to be cited. It is typically not common knowledge. Remember, your goal is to have a properly cited paper, one that gives credit where it is due, as well as a paper that contains your own thoughts and analyses of the readings. When in doubt, cite. It's better to be told you cited too much than to be told you are plagiarized and aren't receiving credit for the paper.